Forever Youth Pastor, episode 4. My name is Jeremy Herr, and this is a conversation about faith, love, and the power of compounding. This episode, we are going to talk about artificial intelligence. Why are very few people talking about this? The people that are making this are saying it is going to be the biggest, most transformative change in the history of humanity, and it is going to happen fast. Like it is happening fast. And yet, most of us just like talk about it as like, whatever. It's just another thing. Went through the internet, went through the iPhone. What's another thing? And then you hear like these other conversations, like people that are really on the center of it. It's like, oh, no, in 10 years, nothing, I repeat, nothing will be the same. And so, like, what do we do with this? And if you're a person of faith, or maybe you're just trying to figure out what faith is all about, what do we do with this? And how do we understand this? And do we embrace it? Do we push against it? Do we use it? Do we resist? The world's heading this way, and like, we don't even know what to do with it. And so, this episode, we're just gonna have a conversation about artificial intelligence. We're going to have a conversation that there is like this Einstein in your pocket that can access in a second all the world's information and deliver it to you like from the smartest person in the world. This is going to be pretty significant and dramatic. And so for us, like, how do we process that? And we're going to have that conversation. But first, I want to tell you a story from this weekend. My wife and I went into New York City. We love New York City. Maybe you are a people, or excuse me, you are a city person. Maybe you are not. Some people in our lovely town of Eastport that we live in, they just don't want to touch New York City at all. And Laura and I look at New York City and it just lights us up. We just totally love it. And we love going in, and it just gives us so much energy. And we often like don't do anything specific, but just walk around and kind of do everything. And that is like travel for me, just brings that out in me. It's something that has just really helped just expand my world and my worldview and just the deeper understanding of people, like going through just so many different experiences and so many different cultural lens. And New York City, the opportunity that we have living so close to it is you can just go in and like, you don't have to travel like an hour and a half train ride and you're just there. And by the way, we've been staying lately in Koreatown, which is just a really cool central area of New York City. But we've been checking out a lot of the food spots there. There was a restaurant, Soul Bap, that we went to. Look it up if it's convenient or possible for you to go to this place. Soul Bap, really good. I won't even spoil it. Just go check that out. But one of the moments we were sitting in New York City, here's the story that I love to tell, and I love your participation in this. And by the way, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from a lot of people, like friends, whether we knew each other previous or not. Like you all have like kind of treated me like a friend in the feedback that you've given me, and that's what I'm looking to do with this. Like just a dude talking to other people, like kind of journeying through the same stuff, but maybe looking at it and talking about it in a perspective that you wouldn't ordinarily hear, and allowing me to go on some tangents at times. I go from New York City to this, but like just hang on for the ride and we're going to have a conversation. I think this is worthwhile stuff, stuff that we're all wondering about or we want to wonder about and talk about. And so let's just go for it. And so we're in New York City. We're in this little bakery and I'm sitting at the window. Laura's sitting there with me and we're just enjoying a coffee and a little bakery treat. And Laura gets up to go use the restroom and I'm just sitting there at the window. And I'm gonna put the photo so you all can see this, understand the image that I see from my vantage point. And so there's like this mailbox. I think there's two mailboxes, and then this red newspaper box, and then there's this other newspaper box that you gotta like put quarters in or something to get the newspaper. And I'm just sitting there minding my own business, drinking my coffee, enjoying my treat. And then I swear, I saw this man come up to the lower newspaper box, the red one, and he opens it up. He uses his knee to like keep the door open, and he pulls out money, like US dollars. He pulled out US dollars, and I can see it's this big pile, and it did not look like ones, by the way. And he's like kind of winding them together, putting them together, folds it in half, and then slips it under the bottom newspaper. And this was the best part. He then, still holding the door with his leg, takes a top newspaper, lets the door slam shut, looks at the paper, and just walks away. And so I'm just sitting there, and now I'm in a story. Now I can participate or not. I can enter into something that may be really interesting and fascinating, maybe a little dangerous, or not. And so Laura comes back from the bathroom, and I know there's like this thing happening here, and I just can't wait to get her in to like to enter her into the story. I'm sure you've had moments with a spouse or a friend where you just like you can't wait to get it out. And so she comes up, and I'm like, Laura, sit down. I got a story. I got a story. I got a story. I got to tell you what's going on here. And so I lay out the whole thing like I explained it to you, and I can just see her concern increase as my excitement increases. And knowing my wife, she's an adventurer. She's up for a story, no doubt. She's always game. But I could tell the danger was too much for her. Or I should say the potential danger is for. But here's the case that I made. And first of all, my question to all of you is what do you do in that scenario? I literally want you to take the next like 30 seconds to just ask yourself, what would I do? Or what would my instinct be to do? What do I want to do in this situation? And then, of course, the answer of like, what should I do? And so, what I wanted to do, and I even presented this to Laura, is I wanted to have her watch me, maybe even film it, pull out the iPhone, and just lift up that bottom paper just to see. Like, I just wanted to see. My curiosity, like, how much are we talking here? Like $50? $1,000? Like $10,000? Like, what are we dealing with here? That's what I was thinking. And I wasn't gonna touch it. I didn't need that money. And I certainly don't want to take that money and like get dead. And so Laura wasn't having that because she just ran the get dead part, which, by the way, one of my main rules in life, like a top shelf worldview for me in my life, is this rule like, don't get dead. I don't want to get dead. And so once Laura brought up the plausibility or viability that there is some percentage chance that I could die doing this, I thought to myself, she's right, because that would break my deep, deep worldview of don't get dead. And so, what she did offer, and this is where Laura is a total gamer, she said, Jeremy, I'll just sit here as long as it takes and we'll just see what happens. We'll see someone come by and grab that money. Obviously, it was a drop off for somebody to pick up along the way. And as much as I wanted to sit there all day and watch that, I wanted to re enter our story. And though my curiosity just continues to get the best of me. And I would love if any of you have gotten this far, just put in the comments, like, what would you do in that scenario? Like, I would love to know what you would do. Just grab it and go. One of our youth group students, I presented this last night. He said, take half of it. And I said, okay, my thought was you up the plausibility that something bad could happen, but you don't even get the upside of taking it all. And so I'm like, genius, maybe, kind of hilarious for sure. Anyway, back to artificial intelligence and how we dance through this coming decade, this coming, rest of our lives. Um, as we dance through like our own faith and understanding of God and what we're trying to do and living out a faith in Jesus, and how do we understand this and what do we do? And so just kind of presenting just from like my vantage point as I've looked into this and studied, I've literally studied this stuff for like 2 years. Like I'll watch YouTube videos, I read news articles. I'm just like following along with the latest things. I've even invested money into some of these companies because like they're just like the whole thing is it's just changing rapidly, and like there's a lot of money being turned over to create all of this stuff. And so for me, it's incredibly interesting. And maybe for you, like you have no interest in any of this at all. But I'm going to get to where I think it's relevant to all of us. But just to kind of set the stage of like the stuff that's happening, you've probably messed at some level with artificial intelligence. And what that is like ChatGPT, the app, is probably the most common app that people have used. And literally, ChatGPT is getting so good that like it's almost an expert on every topic in the world. And you have that expert, that genius, in your pocket or in your hand or accessible really quickly at all times. And so, like, phrasing this differently, it's like having Albert Einstein in your pocket when you need Albert Einstein. It's having Richard Jefferson in your pocket to call up and ask anything you want whenever you want Richard Jefferson. It's wondering what anything in the world, how it works. And it's imperfect and it still gets things wrong. It still, as they say, hallucinates and gives you like really bad results sometimes. If you're an expert in something, you're like, oh no, that's not true or right at all. But generally, it's like a genius in your pocket, a genius in anything. And here's the thing, it will never be dumber than it is today. Today. Like the dumbest it will ever be is today. It is only getting smarter. And so if you just think about that and the exponential increase of that, like the world in a year, the world in 5 years, the world in 10 years is just going to be dramatically different. Sam Altman, um, I'll be honest, he doesn't always pass my smell test. I'm just saying. But anyway, he runs OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, and he said this latest release that came out these last few days, my very approximate vibe is that the model, can do a single digit percentage of all economically valuable tasks in the world, which is a wild milestone. A single digit percentage tasks of like the people that are doing those things currently are being paid as people to do those things. What he is saying is now this model of ChatGPT can replace a single digit percentage. And so, just to put a broader perspective on that, that is like millions and millions and millions of people who are doing millions and millions of different jobs. And again, this is only going to increase. This is only going to become more exponential the more it grows and gets intelligence. There's this other quote. Herbert Simon, I believe he's a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and he said 10 years before the internet came out, he said this. This is brilliant, and man, it is no more relevant today than when he said it all those years ago. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. And we may not have understood that as we all, those of us who walked into the internet age, those of us who were born into the internet age, you may not have like realized how much attention it would take from us, right? It's obviously, to Herbert Simon's prediction, created a poverty of attention. And so with artificial intelligence, as I'm like trying to understand where this stuff is going and how it affects like us living out our faith, how it affects my role as a pastor, how it affects my friends who may have jobs that will be replaced or changed dramatically in the next 10 years. It's like, how do we understand this? And where do we kind of like get ahead of it and join it? And where do we also realize that there's even opportunity here? And so, in the opportunity category, I would say this: where there is a poverty of attention, there is opportunity when we have to offer deep meaning and purpose. And so, what I mean by this is this. So, like, we've seen with social media over the years that, like, as it's just taken our attention and it's just created this fear of missing out, and it's just created these expectations we have that's, by the way, global. Like, think about that for a second. You're no longer just comparing yourself to the people you're around, the people in your neighborhood, the people at your work, the people at your school, the people like in your house. Now you're having the ability to compare yourself to everyone around the world. Like, it's a global comparison now. And so now you're not just comparing yourself to the rich in your own community, you're comparing yourself to the rich globally or like nationwide. You're not just comparing yourself to like the people in your local community and even like maybe your local church. You're now comparing yourself to all citizens of your nation and like all church. Like, as a pastor, now as the internet got going, we're all comparing ourselves to like the famous ones, the ones who have like New York Times bestsellers. That's like what the internet created. And we all have like this micro perspective on that. Like, if you were a scientist and you just like worked in a lab and then the internet came, it's like, oh, all of a sudden, like, it created all sorts of possibilities that, by the way, advanced science just exponentially, like orders of magnitude. But it also created this comparison game to like, now you're up against all science, like all the labs. And so as information just becomes more accessible now that we have Einstein in our pockets, we've got Richard Jefferson accessible, we've got Winston Churchill, we've got anyone ever that we want to know about, and we want to even know their perspectives. There's even going to be more information. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. And I believe that the opportunity here is that in the midst of that poverty of attention, there is going to be some people that start to scrape out of that. And they are going to need to find deep meaning and purpose because their existence, they might have a ton of wealth. And by the way, one of the things that they speculate, like the people creating this future, creating this artificial intelligence, they think that it'll create such abundance that like poverty will just become completely eradicated. Like, the cost of labor will go so low because of robotics, humanoid robotics. Like, they'll do all the jobs. Eventually, humans will not build houses. Eventually, humans will not build cars. Eventually, humans will not build roads and bridges. Eventually, it will all be robotics. And so the cost of doing all that work will just go down essentially to zero. There will potentially be total abundance. And so it may not even matter who has the good jobs or the bad jobs because they're just, everybody will kind of eventually, if they so choose, have like whatever they want for a reasonably low price. That's the future we're headed. That's what's happening. And it's like, I know a joke that I have is like, we have this like, sometimes people sell goods with the tagline made in America, made in the USA. And that can be like a really good selling point for Americans and like wanting to support American businesses. And it's perfectly good. But I think in the future, we will care much less about which nation creates stuff or if it was made by a human or by a machine. If it was written by a human or by artificial intelligence. If it was created by humans or created by computers. And so, stuff, by the way, if you want to create a business that will like grow in steam over the next 10, 20 years, make it made by you. Make stuff that you made that's like human and artistic and beautiful and made by hand. That's the stuff that will really, people will make so much money. Like, it's actually already happening with those, like, super high-end French, like, fashion makers. They hand stitch bags and sell them for $15,000. Like, that's what's gonna be in demand into the future. Yeah. And in terms of, like, the other stuff, though, it's like, "Oh, okay, so what if you were a school teacher and now all of a sudden the school only needs, like, 3 teachers?" Where's that school teacher gonna find their meaning and purpose? Like, say you're a person who makes movies and you do it with cameras and actors, or maybe even you're an actor, and now all of a sudden, anybody with like a computer can just use AI to create a full motion picture that like replicates human acting, like almost on a level that the world has ever seen. Like, whatever perfect acting is, like, eventually they'll be able to learn that. And so what I'm saying though is that like humans will be so in demand. Humans with like skills and humans who like are making stuff and humans who like impact other humans, like flesh and blood interactions. Like, do we think there'll be a need for more therapists in the world in 20 years or less? I'm going to go with the degree to become a therapist will be a good one. That's a good one. Honestly, pastors, someone working with people, trying to work out life's meaning and purpose, trying to answer deep questions of God and his existence and what in the world we are here for, what this whole thing is about. That's going to be so needed. And by the way, I would say, as a side, do not become a pastor unless you are called from God to be a pastor because this is so hard. It's so hard. Please, 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 please only do it if you are called by God to do it. But by all means, pastors and future pastors, if you are called to do this, the work is going to be plentiful. I just want to leave that one in the air. I have this deep, deep belief that the work is going to be abundant. There are going to be so many people crying out for meaning and purpose. There are going to be so many people that have everything they want almost instantly. They can know everything about anything, but they're going to be devoid of deep meaning and purpose. What they will sense is the thing that many of us probably have sensed. Like, what is this whole thing about? Is there a God? Is it Jesus? Who is this Jesus? What did he say? What did he do? Should I believe in this Jesus? I bet some of those questions will even be the top questions given to ChatGPT. They're going to be asking these questions. And I bet if you're really paying attention to the world around you right now, I already see it happening. I already see people asking questions and wanting to have conversations that they would not have had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even a year ago. There is like, it's becoming, at least in the circles I run, it's becoming cool to talk about God again. And by the way, let's keep making it cool to talk about God again. If you're listening to this, like, let's not be afraid to talk about God. People actually want to. They actually want to. They actually know that there's something in them, like that there's something more to this. They know it and they sense it. And sometimes the answers that are being spat out, it's like they just don't work. And it's like as culture tries to explain things and like yell at us to be nice and kind and compassionate to each other, but then like everyone's so mean. It's like you, as long as you agree with someone, you're like kind and loving to them. Like, and this is on all sides, the right, the left, every side, Christian, non-Christian, every side does this thing. It's like, if we agree with each other, we're great. Oh, I'll love you. I'll hang out with you. We'll go to the same restaurants together. Like, we'll hang out at the same buildings together. But we completely and totally avoid the spaces where there will be people that we don't see eye to eye with or think differently or live differently. And then we're all yelling at each other to just love each other. It's like, I don't believe that there was a better time in the history of the world for Jesus to step in, for Jesus to be relevant. I mean, he, in all of human history, he's never been not relevant. In fact, he has been the singular most relevant figure since the day he was born. There's been nobody more relevant, more great, more written about, more talked about, more debated, more discussed, more controversial than Jesus. And I would argue the next 10 years, he will only be more relevant. We will need him more than ever. And a lot of it has to do with the hope, the meaning, and the purpose that we can find from Jesus. Like here, now, not just heaven. We let heaven cloud this whole thing. Heaven's amazing. I can't wait to go there one day, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to be here and I want to be a part of this action. I want to be a part of these next 10, 20 years. I want to make Jesus even more relevant. He does the work, he does it for us, but like we're on a mission. We get to be his ambassadors. We get to be the one bringing the good news of Jesus. We get to bring in hope where there's hopelessness. We get to bring in love where everyone's just like yelling and screaming at each other in the name of love. We get to bring in forgiveness when like if you disagree with someone, you get to cancel them and like put them on the city square to be murdered or something. We get to do all the things that Jesus came and did. He showed us the way. And guess what? He entered a time that was almost the exact same. There were shooting squads there. Jesus got taken down by one of the shooting squads. It was just, he was just put on a cross after being beaten and whipped and lashed and murdered. He was just put on a cross. And the great irony of like us proudly, and we do, Christians, even non Christians, proudly wear a cross, recognize a cross, celebrate a cross. But it's like that was the shooting squad of the day. The public execution. Jesus was relevant then, and he is most certainly relevant today. We need him as much as ever. But I think what's changing, and I think it's changing quick, is going to be people's hunger and need for this amazing Jesus. And so for me, the way I'm stepping into these next 10 years, like, first of all, just totally open handed. I don't know if this stuff is good. I'm really interested in it. I've been very technologically inclined and very interested in technology for a very long time. I've invested in it, and it's just something that's interesting to me. And so I'll continue to just follow it along. And I don't know if some of this is going to be for the good. I'd say there's going to be a large portion of this that will actually be quite bad. And I think it's probably some of the same things, though more things, more exaggerated, I believe, that we see now as we look back at social media. Yeah, I mean, it connected all of us. Like, I have friends that will see this because of social media. I have friends that I'm still connected to because of social media. There's like some sense of like togetherness that even brought us in things like a global pandemic. Like, there's some positives there. But obviously, like, even for myself, being a 21-year youth pastor and just seeing the difference of like pre-social media to post-social media, and like being in there every step of the way, like pre-iPhone to post-iPhone. I mean, if we don't think that this has had a just massive impact on us as humans, like, oh man, it it is massive, like mind-blowingly massive, the impact that it's had. And some of it is good, but in teenagers, I mean, ah, mm, I never want to be the old guy yelling at people to get off his lawn. In fact, I'm kind of the opposite of that kind of person. But man, I don't know. I okay, I'm just gonna say this, and I believe this. We should not be letting anyone under 16 be on social media. Period. End of story. It is bad, bad, bad. It is bad. It does not help them at all. And if we as parents, enough of us mount up and we together change the tide, because it's actually us parents that are allowing this. It's the parents. It is not the kids. If us parents, all the majority said no, then all of a sudden we wouldn't have to face the hardest thing that we as parents have to face. And that thing is, as you already know, the pressure of our kids saying, but I will be left alone. I will be the one missing out. Oh, and as a parent, that just breaks your heart. The last thing you would ever want is for your kid to be left out, to be alone. But here's the thing, parents, we can mount up together. It would be better. It would be better. I do have some data on this. I've lived and seen pre and post. It would definitely be better. But here's the thing, there's going to be some really good stuff in the future too. It's going to cure cancers. Friends who we've lost, they're going to have a shot in the future. I mean, poverty, if this is all run properly and equitably, I mean, it will just go to zero. There will just be complete abundance. And that will, of course, still bring a lot of issues. And at the forefront of that, which I'll just summarize this entire conversation, is if there is a future where we all kind of have, give or take, everything we want within reason, of course, what will be left when it comes to stuff? And we already know stuff doesn't fill that void, right? We talked about this a little bit, episode 3. Check that out if you'd like. And we already know stuff doesn't fill the void. We keep trying, we keep assuming that it will, we keep hoping that it will, but it doesn't, of course. And so then where do we go next? We go to the things, our work. Where do we find our work brings us meaning and purpose? But yet, like, what if there's a world where there's abundance and you don't even really need to work that much or to utilize your skills in the way that bring you purpose and meaning? You might just have to be running an AI somewhere. I don't know. It sounds a little horrible, but I don't know. And so what I would say is there's going to be this just collapse of meaning and purpose. And thus enters in Jesus. Thus enters in hope. And thus enters in the one thing that will not change. It's Jesus. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. From the Bible. Hebrews, I believe. Yeah. And so for those of us who are following Jesus, like, let's keep leaning into finding our meaning and purpose from there. Like, let's keep growing in that. Let's keep being transformed in that. Let's keep having like these sorts of conversations. And also, like, let's get busy bringing heaven now. Like, let's get busy bringing the good news of Jesus here and now. Let's get busy bringing the gospel to people now. Let's get busy having these conversations that people want to have. Let's go. Like, let's start helping people, our friends who may or may not be following Jesus. Let's help them discover meaning and purpose. And we don't need to do that by cramming Jesus all over them. But hey, I bet they're interested. I actually challenge you. Like, I bet they'd love to talk about it. And it matters so much how you go about talking about it. Do it with love and grace and humility. But just like ask the questions, and you don't even need to give the answers. In fact, don't. Just have the conversations and tell your side of hope, meaning, purpose. People actually people actually don't want answers. They they want framework, they want questions, they want your story. They want like what you've learned along the way. And so with that deficit of meaning and purpose comes Jesus. And now we're on the final minute. And for all of you who made it this episode longer than most, 39 minutes, you are a legend. You are amazing. And the word for like, I'm sorry, this is the most fun thing that this is. And so many of you told me the word, and you all are the best. Let's like keep this going because it's fun. And why not? And I want there to be some fun. And by the way, if you bared with me for 39 minutes, you deserve some fun. And so here's the word for episode 4. It's kaboom. Kaboom. You can spell it however you want, but it comes with a story, bonus story. So I'm into sports cards, and I probably spend too much money on this, but it's fun and I enjoy it. and I don't spend a lot of money on a lot of things, and this is something that I enjoy. But here's the dirty little secret with sports cards is you pay a lot for the packs, you open it up, and there's almost no value in there ever. And so the moment happened yesterday. Laura and I, as I said, were in the city. I bought some packs, probably spent a little more than I should have on some packs. But I opened this one pack, and there is this one card that this one company makes. And they do it for all the sports, I think. But it's football, and it's a Kaboom card. Yesterday, I kid you not, I opened a Travis Kelce Kaboom. I'll post it. I'll put the photo. It's worth like ungraded. It's worth like $400 to $500. Graded, it's worth up to $2,200. Lottery ticket. It's like it was like sports card person lottery ticket. And so that's super fun. I'm still excited about it. And again, I'll put a photo here. And the last minuters, even though this was a little longer, I don't think you'll mind. If you stayed the long, like you're in. So um, no, it was super fun though. And thank you all. Here's the thing. I want to say this as well. If you're the type of person that gets through 41 minutes of this, you are the type of person that is continuing to grow and transform. And you are just trying to figure this stuff out. And so I will say this to you, keep going. You're on such an important journey. Don't stop. Just keep growing. God is working in you, and He's going to use you. And just keep working through those voices in your head that try to tell you you're just a piece of junk and you're not getting any of this right. You totally are. You totally are. Just keep going. You're amazing. See